When the sun drops and the last light drains from the horizon, a gate appears where no gate should exist, standing alone in silence, carved from stone older than memory. No road leads to it, yet footsteps gather around it. No sign marks it, yet every myth is pointed here. At the threshold stands a guardian with a shape like a person, still as a statue, face hidden in shadow. The air feels heavier near the doorway, and the space beyond it refuses to show what's inside. One step forward places you at the border of two worlds. One step more, and the gate decides for you. As darkness falls, there's a place, a realm, where the boundaries of life and death blur, where the living and the dead stand at the edge of a threshold, each waiting for the moment they must cross. It is not a place that one can easily imagine, yet it exists in every ancient tale, every whispered legend. A place where gatekeepers, silent and powerful, stand guard, watching over the spaces between worlds. These gatekeepers, shrouded in mystery and fear, are not just figures from stories, but representations of something far deeper, an embodiment of the unknown. Picture, if you will, a gate. But this is not just any gate. It is an entrance to a world that you can neither escape from nor return to once you have passed. At the threshold stand a figure, ever watchful. Their gaze is unwavering, yet you cannot quite make out their features. They are guardians of something far greater than a simple doorway. These gatekeepers are the figures that guard the entrances to realms that exist beyond our comprehension. The underworlds, the afterlife, the places where darkness and death intertwine with the mysteries of life itself. To cross these boundaries is to enter a world unknown, where time itself may lose meaning and the rules of existence may no longer apply. For centuries, various cultures have woven these gatekeepers into their myths, not just as creatures of horror, but as symbols of transformation, judgment, and control. They are the ones who decide whether a soul passes through, whether it is condemned to wander forever, or whether it may be freed. The mere thought of such beings, standing at the gates of death itself, evokes both fear and wonder. They are the bridge between the living and the dead, the known and the unknown. And as we venture into their world, we find ourselves questioning, are they truly there to protect us? Or are they there to keep us trapped in a world we cannot escape? What do these guardians truly want? And what is their purpose in the grand scheme of existence? The myths surrounding these guardians have survived the passage of time, evolving and shifting with the societies that embrace them. Yet, there remains one constant in every story. The gatekeepers are not merely passive figures. They are active participants in the stories of death and rebirth, of transformation and judgment. They are the ones who separate those who have crossed the threshold from those who have yet to. These figures, whether monstrous, divine, or somewhere in between, are the custodians of the mysteries that lie beyond the veil. They are the ones who ensure that the boundaries of life and death remain intact. Without them, there would be chaos. Without them, the fragile balance between the known and unknown would collapse. Imagine standing before one of these guardians, as countless souls have done before you. You may feel fear creeping up your spine, a sense of inevitability, as if the moment of your crossing is written in the stars. Perhaps you would even wonder, as they stare back at you, what it would feel like to pass through the gate. Would you be ready to leave everything behind? Or would you falter, held back by the pull of what you know? These guardians do not speak, for they do not need words. Their presence alone is enough to keep you in check, to remind you of your place in the grand design of things. And yet, despite their fearsome nature, there is something oddly comforting about them. They are not there to destroy you, but to guide you, to ensure that you do not wander too far into the unknown without purpose. In every culture, from the ancient Greeks to the Egyptians, from the Norse to the Aztecs, these figures are seen as both protectors and enforcers. They stand at the edges of the realms, watching for those who would dare to trespass, ensuring that the natural order is upheld. Yet, their role is not just one of fear and control. These guardians represent something far deeper, a reflection of our own fears and our own desires to understand the mysteries of life and death. They are not just keepers of gates. They are keepers of the unknown, of the secrets that we may never fully understand. One of the most iconic of these gatekeepers is Cerberus, the three-headed hound of Greek mythology. Cerberus is perhaps the most well-known figure in the pantheon of gatekeepers, and for good reason. His fierce loyalty to Hades, the god of the underworld, makes him the perfect sentinel, guarding the gates to the realm of the dead. Cerberus is not a figure of pure evil, but rather a creature of necessity. He does not guard the gates because he enjoys causing pain. Rather, he ensures that the dead do not escape the underworld and that the living do not enter. His presence is a constant reminder that death is final, that the journey to the afterlife is not one that can be undone. And yet, even Cerberus has a complex nature. He is both a protector and a deterrent, a figure that strikes fear into the hearts of mortals while also reminding them of the inevitability of death. Similarly, in Egyptian mythology, the concept of gatekeepers takes on a different form, with gods like Anubis and Ammit standing watch over the afterlife. Anubis, the god of mummification, plays a key role in the journey to the afterlife. His duty is to guide the souls of the dead through the trials of the underworld, ensuring that they reach their final resting place. Anubis is not a figure of terror, but rather one of compassion, guiding souls with a steady hand through the dangerous realms of the dead. However, Ammit, the devourer of souls, represents a far darker aspect of the gatekeeper's role. Ammit is the one who consumes the souls of those deemed unworthy, casting them into oblivion. While Anubis offers hope and guidance, Ammit serves as a reminder that the afterlife is not guaranteed, that judgment is inevitable, and that the balance between life and death must be maintained. Across these different mythologies, the gatekeepers serve similar purposes, yet their roles vary. Some are protectors, others are judges, and still others are punishing figures. But what unites them all is the sense that they are guardians of something beyond our understanding, something we can never truly know until we face it ourselves. The gatekeepers of the underworld, whether they are monstrous or divine, serve as a reminder that death is not an end, but a passage. And it is through their watchful eyes that we learn to confront our deepest fears and embrace the mysteries that lie beyond. In the end, these gatekeepers represent much more than just a barrier between life and death. They are the embodiments of our own fear and curiosity, our desire to understand what lies beyond the veil. They are the figures that stand between us and the unknown, ensuring that we are ready for the journey ahead. They are the ones who guard the gates of the underworld, holding the secrets of life and death in their hands. And as we face them, we must ask ourselves, are we ready to cross the threshold, or are we simply waiting for the moment when we must? Throughout history, the concept of gatekeepers has existed as a vital part of mythology, religion, and even folklore. These beings, whether gods, monsters, or spirits, are more than just passive figures standing in front of doors. They represent the boundary between the living and the dead, the known and the unknown. Their role goes far beyond that of mere sentinels. They are the arbiters of fate, deciding who may pass and who must stay behind. Across cultures and centuries, these figures have shaped our understanding of death, the afterlife, and what lies beyond our mortal existence. To understand the role of gatekeepers, one must first grasp the significance of the gates they guard. These are not just physical thresholds, but metaphysical ones, symbolic representations of the divide between life and death, knowledge and ignorance. In ancient Greek mythology, one of the most well-known examples of gatekeeping can be found in the figure of Cerberus, the three-headed hound who guards the gates of the underworld. Cerberus is not simply a creature of terror. His role in the mythology is far more complex. As the guardian of the underworld, Cerberus ensures that the dead do not escape and that the living do not trespass. He is a symbol of the finality of death, a reminder that once a soul has crossed the boundary between life and death, it cannot return. Yet, Cerberus' task is not as simple as it seems. He is not there to harm the dead, but to ensure they remain where they belong, in the realm of the deceased. In this sense, Cerberus can be seen as a guardian of order, preserving the delicate balance between life and death. The mythology surrounding Cerberus is filled with stories of heroes who attempted to outwit or even defeat him, such as Hercules during his labors. Yet, Each of these encounters underscores the same point. No one escapes the underworld once they have crossed its gates. The role of Cerberus is not to destroy, but to protect, to preserve the boundaries that separate the realms of the living from the dead. Similarly, in the Egyptian tradition, the concept of gatekeeping is closely tied to the afterlife. In ancient Egyptian mythology, the journey of the soul through the afterlife is fraught with trials, and the gatekeepers who guard the gates of the underworld play a crucial role in this journey. Anubis, the god of mummification, is one of the most prominent figures in this process. He is depicted as a jackal or a man with a jackal head, a creature that symbolizes both death and protection. Anubis is the one who guides the souls of the dead through the dangerous underworld, ensuring they reach the judgment hall of Osiris, where their hearts are weighed against the feather of Maat, the goddess of truth. Anubis does not judge the souls himself, but he is the one who ensures they undergo the necessary preparations for the journey ahead. His role as a guide is integral to the Egyptian understanding of death, not as an end, but as a transformation. By helping the deceased navigate the underworld, Anubis serves as a protector, ensuring that they face the challenges of the afterlife with dignity and strength. He is the first figure the soul encounters on its journey, and his role is to prepare it for the judgment that lies ahead. Yet, while Anubis represents the guiding hand of death, there are also figures in Egyptian mythology who represent the darker, more terrifying aspects of the afterlife. One such figure is Ammit, the devourer of souls. Ammit is a fearsome creature, part crocodile, part lion, and part hippopotamus, and her role is to consume the souls of those who are judged unworthy after their hearts are weighed. Unlike Anubis, who helps the souls of the dead, Ammit is there to punish those whose hearts are found to be heavy with sin. Her presence in the judgment process underscores the Egyptian belief in divine justice, where the dead must face the consequences of their actions in life. Ammit is not a figure of compassion, but of retribution. Her role is to maintain the balance of the afterlife, ensuring that only the worthy are allowed to pass into the eternal fields of Aru, while the unworthy are cast into oblivion. In this way, Ammit serves as a reminder that death is not just a release from suffering, but also a moment of reckoning. In Norse mythology, the role of gatekeeping takes on a different form, though it is no less significant. In this tradition, the gatekeepers are often gods and warriors who guard the realms of the dead and the afterlife. The most notable of these figures is Hel, the goddess who rules over the land of the dead, Helheim. Hel is the daughter of Loki, and she presides over a realm that is cold and dark, a place where the souls of those who did not die in battle are sent to dwell. Hel's role as a gatekeeper is both literal and symbolic. She guards the entrance to the afterlife, but she also represents the inevitability of death for all who do not die in combat. In Norse belief, only those who die in battle are worthy of entering Valhalla, the hall of the slain, where they will fight and feast until the end of the world. Hel, on the other hand, welcomes those who die of sickness, old age, or other causes, and she rules over their afterlife in a more somber, reflective manner. The contrast between Valhalla and Helheim underscores the Norse belief in death as a transition, not an end. Hel does not punish the souls that enter her realm. Rather, she provides them with a place to rest and reflect on their lives. In this way, she too plays a crucial role in the afterlife, acting as both a gatekeeper and a ruler of the dead. In Celtic mythology, the idea of gatekeepers is similarly tied to the natural world and the cycle of life and death. The Celts believe in a realm known as the Underworld, a place that was inhabited by gods, spirits, and the souls of the dead. The entrance to the Underworld was often thought to be found in certain sacred places, such as mounds, lakes, or groves, and it was guarded by various beings. These guardians were not always terrifying figures, but rather protectors of the thresholds that separated the worlds of the living and the dead. One such figure is the Kaleach, a goddess associated with death, winter, and the transition between the old and new. The Kaleach is often depicted as an old woman, a figure of both wisdom and danger. She guards the boundaries between life and death, ensuring that the cycles of nature continue uninterrupted. In this sense, the Kaleach represents the Celtic belief that death is not an end, but a natural part of the ongoing flow of life. Across these different mythologies, the role of gatekeepers is to maintain the balance between life and death, to ensure that souls pass through the gates at the right time, and that the boundaries between the known and the unknown are respected. Whether they are gods, monsters, or spirits, these figures serve a vital function in the spiritual understanding of death. They are not simply there to terrorize the living, but to ensure that the natural order is upheld, that the cycle of life and death continues as it should. These gatekeepers remind us that there is more to life than what we see, that beyond the veil of existence lies something greater, something unknown, and that the journey between these worlds is not something to be taken lightly. They are the silent sentinels who stand watch at the edges of our understanding, ensuring that the mysteries of the afterlife remain intact. Cerberus, the three-headed hound of Greek mythology, stands as one of the most iconic and terrifying guardians in the ancient world. His name alone evokes images of ferocity and vigilance, yet his role is far more complex than that of a mere monster. Cerberus is not simply a beast lurking at the gates of the underworld, ready to devour anyone foolish enough to approach. He is a symbol of the impenetrable boundary between life and death, the force that ensures the dead remain where they belong. His very existence challenges our understanding of death, asking us to confront the idea that there are forces beyond our control, forces that govern our fate and prevent us from escaping the inevitable. In Greek mythology, Cerberus was tasked with guarding the gates of the underworld, preventing the souls of the dead from escaping and ensuring that the living could not cross into the realm of the deceased. His role was essential in maintaining the balance of the afterlife, for without him, the dead would wander freely, and the living might tread too carelessly on the threshold between the worlds. Yet, while Cerberus is often depicted as a fearsome creature, his role is not one of pure malevolence. He is not there to punish the souls that enter the underworld, but to ensure that they remain where they belong. His job is not to harm, but to contain, to keep order in a realm where chaos could easily reign. The three heads of Cerberus represent different aspects of his role as a guardian. Each head symbolizes a different characteristic. One head watches for those who would attempt to escape, the second for those who would try to enter, and the third, the most fearsome, ensures that no soul wanders too far from its assigned place. The mythology surrounding Cerberus is filled with stories of heroes attempting to outwit or defeat him. Perhaps the most famous of these is the tale of Hercules, who, as part of his 12 labors, was tasked with capturing Cerberus and bringing him to the surface. The idea that Hercules could subdue such a formidable beast speaks not only to the hero's strength, but to the larger mythological theme of confronting and overcoming the forces that govern life and death. But even in this story, Cerberus is not vanquished. He is merely subdued, temporarily removed from his post. His return to the underworld signifies that the balance between life and death is never truly disturbed, that the gates will always be guarded, and that death is a constant, unchanging force. In another famous tale, the myth of Orpheus, Cerberus plays a pivotal role in the journey of the poet who attempts to retrieve his wife, Eurydice, from the underworld. In this story, Orpheus charms Cerberus with his music, lulling the beast into a temporary stupor long enough for him to pass by. The idea that Cerberus, the embodiment of death itself, could be swayed by the soft melodies of a mortal song is both fascinating and poignant. It speaks to the power of art, the human soul's ability to transcend even the darkest forces. However, Orpheus' success is short-lived, for his ultimate failure to bring Eurydice back to life serves as a reminder that the dead cannot be reclaimed, that death's hold is final and unyielding. Even Cerberus, in his moment of vulnerability, cannot stop the inevitable cycle of life and death. The story of Orpheus underscores the dual nature of Cerberus. He is both a symbol of death's inevitability and a creature who, in certain circumstances, can be momentarily overcome, if only by the most powerful and transcendent forces. The role of Cerberus in Greek mythology is a reflection of a broader cultural view of death and the afterlife. In ancient Greece, death was not seen as an end, but as a transition, a journey to a different realm. The underworld, ruled by Hades, was a place where the souls of the deceased went to receive judgment, and the role of Cerberus was to ensure that no soul could escape once it had crossed the threshold. This view of death as a transition, rather than a finality, is reinforced by the many stories in which heroes and mortals venture into the underworld, not as an irreversible fate, but as a challenge that can be faced and sometimes even overcome. However, Cerberus' role in these stories is always the same. He is a constant, an unmovable force that represents the boundary between life and death, and no matter how many times he is defeated or outwitted, he will always return to his post, guarding the gates of the underworld. Cerberus is also a reflection of the Greek understanding of the afterlife itself. In the ancient Greek worldview, death was not an escape from life's struggles, but a continuation of the journey. The souls of the dead, once they crossed the threshold of the underworld, were not simply forgotten. They lived on in a shadowy, formless existence. The role of Cerberus, then, was to maintain the separation between the realms of the living and the dead, to ensure that the dead did not return to haunt the living, and that the living did not trespass into the land of the deceased. His fierce presence at the gates was a reminder that there were boundaries that should not be crossed, that there was a place for everything in the cosmos, and that the natural order had to be respected. The mythology surrounding Cerberus speaks to the deep human need to understand death, to make sense of what lies beyond the realm of the living. By personifying death as a creature, fierce, untamable, and ever watchful, ancient cultures were able to frame their understanding of the afterlife in a way that made it both tangible and terrifying. Cerberus is not just a gatekeeper. He is the embodiment of our fear of death and the unknown. His three heads symbolize the many facets of death itself, the inevitable, the unknown, and the finality that awaits us all. As much as we may try to deny it or avoid it, death is a force that cannot be escaped, and Cerberus stands as a constant reminder of this. Yet, despite his fearsome nature, there is something undeniably compelling about Cerberus. Perhaps it is the way in which he straddles the line between monster and protector, between terror and order. In many ways, he is a necessary figure in the mythological landscape, a guardian of the underworld who ensures that the dead remain where they belong and that the living do not tread too boldly into the realm of the deceased. Without Cerberus, the underworld would lose its boundary, its distinction from the world of the living. Death would become an endless, chaotic journey with no clear beginning or end. It is because of Cerberus that the afterlife retains its order, its structure. In the end, Cerberus is more than just a mythological creature. He is a symbol of something universal, our relationship with death, with the unknown, and with the boundaries that define our lives. He is a figure who stands at the threshold, watching, waiting, ensuring that the line between life and death is never crossed without consequence. And in this role, Cerberus reminds us that while death may seem like the end, it is, in fact, a part of a much larger cycle, one that continues to shape our existence long after we are gone. His watchful eyes remind us that death is not something to fear, but something to understand, to respect, and to accept as an inevitable part of the journey we all must take. In the rich tapestry of Egyptian mythology, the gatekeepers of the underworld stand as pivotal figures, each with their own distinct role in the journey of the soul through the afterlife. Among these figures, Anubis is perhaps the most recognized, not only as a guardian, but as a guide to the departed. With his jackal head, Anubis presides over the process of mummification and the safeguarding of the dead, ensuring that souls make their passage through the perilous realms of the afterlife. His role is that of a protector, a benevolent guide who helps the deceased navigate the complicated path to their final judgment. Yet, despite his compassionate nature, Anubis' presence is also a stark reminder of death's certainty. There is no escaping it. It is an inevitable passage for all, and Anubis is the one who helps souls face their fate. His role, unlike Cerberus' more passive guardianship, involves an active engagement with the soul, ensuring that it is prepared for the trials that lie ahead. Through Anubis, the Egyptians believed that the journey of death was not an end, but a transformation, a crossing over into another state of being, where judgment and purification would take place. As the deity responsible for the preservation of the body and soul, Anubis' influence extended far beyond his role in mummification. He also served as the one who would lead the soul to the scales of Ma'at, the goddess of truth, where it would undergo the ultimate judgment. The soul would be weighed against the feather of Ma'at, which symbolized justice, and this process determined whether the deceased had lived a virtuous life. If the soul was found worthy, it would continue its journey toward the paradise of the afterlife, the fields of Aru. If, however, the soul was deemed unworthy, it would be devoured by the fearsome Ammit, the goddess who embodied both judgment and destruction. The act of judgment, and Anubis' guiding hand in it, was not simply about the fate of the soul. It was a reflection of the Egyptians' belief in the moral balance of the universe. The process was not only a divine reckoning, but also an acknowledgement that death was not something to be feared, but rather something that required the soul to reflect on its actions, to confront its own morality and purpose in life. While Anubis offered protection and guidance, the presence of Ammit in Egyptian mythology introduces a darker aspect to the concept of gatekeeping. Unlike Anubis, whose compassion and assistance are focused on the well-being of the deceased, Ammit's role is strictly punitive. Often depicted as a creature with the head of a crocodile, the body of a lion, and the hindquarters of a hippopotamus, Ammit is the devourer of souls. Her function in the afterlife is to consume the hearts of those who fail the judgment, casting them into oblivion. Her presence in the judgment process serves as a stark reminder that the afterlife, much like life itself, is governed by a strict moral code. To fail the judgment was not merely to face an unfortunate fate, but to be erased from existence entirely. Ammit's role as the ultimate enforcer of divine justice underscores the ancient Egyptian view that the universe was in a constant state of balance, a balance that could be tipped only by immoral actions. While Anubis guided the soul to its reckoning, it was Ammit who ultimately determined the fate of the soul, deciding whether it would continue to exist in the afterlife or cease to be altogether. Her terrifying role emphasizes the Egyptians' understanding that death was not a simple passage, but a transformative process that required the soul to be weighed, measured, and ultimately judged by the gods. This interplay between Anubis and Ammit paints a vivid picture of the duality inherent in Egyptian mythology. On one hand, Anubis represents the hopeful side of the afterlife, where the soul can be redeemed, purified, and reborn into an eternal existence. On the other hand, Ammit embodies the fearsome consequences of failing to live in accordance with divine order, a reminder that the afterlife was not simply a place of rest, but a realm governed by cosmic law. The balance between these two figures reflects the Egyptians' belief that death was a journey marked by both hope and fear, where the soul's fate was determined not by chance, but by the actions taken during life. This dynamic also underscores a broader philosophical concept, that the afterlife was not a realm separate from life, but an extension of it, a place where one's deeds, both good and bad, would ultimately be weighed and judged. In addition to Anubis and Ammit, there were other gatekeepers in Egyptian mythology who played smaller, yet equally important, roles in the journey of the soul. One such figure is Thoth, the god of wisdom and writing, who is often depicted as a scribe recording the judgment of the soul. Thoth's presence in the judgment process adds another layer to the concept of cosmic order, as he serves as both a divine witness and an impartial recorder of the events that unfold in the Hall of Two Truths. Thoth's role as a scribe speaks to the importance of knowledge and truth in Egyptian culture. Just as Anubis ensured the soul was properly prepared for judgment, and Ammit determined its fate, Thoth ensured that the process was documented and that no soul's fate was decided without due record. His role emphasizes the Egyptians' reverence for knowledge and the idea that truth was an essential component of both life and death. The existence of these gatekeepers, Anubis, Ammit, and Thoth, reflects a deeply ingrained understanding of the afterlife in Egyptian culture. For the Egyptians, death was not an end, but a passage, a journey that could only be undertaken if the soul was properly prepared and judged. The role of the gatekeeper, whether it was Anubis leading the soul through the underworld or Ammit ensuring the balance of judgment, was essential to this journey. These figures were not just mythological creatures or divine entities. They were representations of the forces that govern existence itself: order, justice, and transformation. Through the stories of Anubis and Ammit, the ancient Egyptians articulated a vision of the afterlife that was both morally rigorous and spiritually transformative. The significance of the gatekeepers in Egyptian mythology extends far beyond the afterlife. They serve as symbols of the universal truths that govern existence. That death is inevitable, that life must be lived according to divine law, and that the soul must be judged for its actions. These gatekeepers remind us that our lives are part of a greater cosmic order, that our actions have consequences, and that we are not simply subject to the whims of fate, but to the laws that govern the universe. In this way, the role of the gatekeeper in Egyptian mythology serves not just as a tool for the journey of the soul after death, but as a profound reflection on how we live our lives in the present. The presence of Anubis, Ammit, and Thoth in these stories provide the blueprint for how we should approach our own lives, with a sense of responsibility, with an understanding that our choices matter, and with the knowledge that our actions, in the end, will be judged by a higher power. In the end, the gatekeepers of Egyptian mythology, like those in other cultures, serve as both protectors and enforcers, ensuring that the soul's journey is one of balance, judgment, and transformation. Through their vigilance and wisdom, they maintain the cosmic order, ensuring that the realms of the living and the dead remain distinct, yet interconnected. They remind us that death is not an escape, but a continuation of the journey we all must take, and that how we live our lives will determine the nature of that journey. Just as Anubis guides the soul, Ammit punishes the unworthy, and Thoth records the truth, we too must navigate the gates of our own lives with care, knowing that the choices we make will ultimately shape the path we travel. In Norse mythology, the idea of gatekeepers takes on a distinct and deeply resonant meaning, shaped by the beliefs of a culture that viewed death and the afterlife as essential, inevitable elements of existence. The Norse cosmology, with its 9 realms and complex pantheon of gods and spirits, places great emphasis on the journey to the afterlife and the gatekeepers who stand watch over it. Unlike the more passive gatekeepers found in other mythologies, such as Cerberus or Anubis, the Norse guardians are often portrayed as active, formidable figures who maintain the balance between life and death through strength, courage, and wisdom. One of the most powerful and intriguing figures among these gatekeepers is Hel, the ruler of the realm of the dead, Helheim. Hel, daughter of the trickster god Loki, presides over a dark and cold domain where the souls of those who did not die in battle are sent after death. In Norse belief, the afterlife is not a singular concept, but a collection of different realms, each designated for specific types of death. Those who die in battle are taken to Valhalla, the great hall of Odin, where they will fight and feast until the end of the world, preparing for the final battle at Ragnarok. But for those who die of illness, old age, or other natural causes, their souls are sent to Helheim, ruled by the half-living, half-dead goddess, Hel. Her domain is a place of shadow and silence, a stark contrast to the grandeur of Valhalla. In this way, Hel's role as a gatekeeper is to distinguish between the souls of warriors and those of the less fortunate, ensuring that the realms of the afterlife remain ordered and that each soul is placed according to its fate. Hel herself is a figure of ambiguity and duality. Her appearance, with one half of her face appearing as a beautiful woman and the other half as a decayed corpse, symbolizes the balance between life and death, a reflection of her position as both ruler of the dead and a figure who embodies the inevitability of death for all who do not die in battle. Unlike other gatekeepers, Hel does not actively judge the souls that enter her realm. She does not consume them or send them to oblivion, but instead provides them with a place to rest and reflect on their lives. In this sense, Hel's role as a gatekeeper is not one of punishment, but of transition, guiding the souls to their final resting place. Yet, there is also a sense of melancholy in her realm, a reminder that death is not just a passage to another life, but an end to the struggles of this world. Hel's domain is not a place of suffering in the traditional sense, but rather a cold, lifeless place where the soul is left to wander in isolation. It is a realm where those who have not died in battle are neither rewarded with the glory of Valhalla nor condemned to eternal torment, but instead are left to dwell in a place that reflects the somber nature of their passing. This highlights a significant aspect of Norse beliefs about death, that not all deaths are equal, and the afterlife is not a singular experience for everyone. Hell's role as gatekeeper is to ensure that the souls who enter her realm receive the rest they are due, without the chaos or violence that marks the warrior's death. Her presence in Norse mythology also serves as a reminder that death, though inevitable, is not always a tragic event. It is simply a part of the cycle of existence, and for those who enter her domain, there is no further struggle, only rest. The distinction between the souls who go to Valhalla and those who are sent to Helheim reflects a broader theme in Norse mythology. The warrior's death is seen as a noble and glorious end, while other deaths are often marked by a sense of resignation or sorrow. This duality is deeply ingrained in the Norse worldview, where honor, battle, and strength were held in the highest regard. The idea of an afterlife that rewards the brave and punishes the weak speaks to the values of a culture that prized heroism and martial prowess above all else. Yet, even in the case of hell, the portrayal of death is not as a simple dichotomy of reward and punishment. Instead, it is a more nuanced reflection of the reality of life and death, where even those who do not meet a heroic end are still given a place in the world beyond. Hell's counterpart in the realm of life is the god of war and wisdom, Odin, who rules over Valhalla, the Hall of the Slain. Odin's role as the ultimate gatekeeper of the honored dead is defined by his ability to determine who is worthy of entering Valhalla. In the myths, it is Odin who chooses which warriors will be taken to his hall after death, based on their bravery and deeds in battle. Valhalla is a place where warriors live on after death, fighting and feasting until the end of the world, when they will rise up to fight in the final battle at Ragnarok. Odin's role as gatekeeper is one of selection and honor, as he chooses those who have proven themselves worthy of eternal glory. In contrast, Hell's realm is one where the souls of those who did not die in battle are sent to rest, with no promise of glory, but only the quiet acceptance of their fate. The relationship between Odin and Hell highlights a key aspect of Norse mythology, the cyclical nature of life and death. Where Odin represents the warrior's death, honored, remembered, and celebrated, Hell represents the natural death, the passing of the old and the weary. The gatekeepers in Norse mythology are not simply there to separate life from death. They are there to ensure that each soul receives its due, whether that be in the glory of Valhalla or the quiet reflection of Helheim. The boundaries between these realms are not arbitrary, but are defined by the values and beliefs of the Norse people, who saw life and death as inextricably linked, with honor, fate, and bravery determining the path that each soul would take. In the Norse view, death is not something to be feared but accepted as a part of the natural order. The presence of these gatekeepers, Hel, Odin, and the other figures who oversee the journey of the soul, serves as a reminder that death is not the end, but a transition to another state of existence. The role of the gatekeeper, in this context, is not to punish or reward, but to ensure that the soul's journey follows the path it was meant to take. Whether that path leads to Valhalla, where the brave warriors are honored, or to Helheim, where the souls of the fallen are left to rest, the gatekeeper's role is to maintain the balance between the living and the dead, ensuring that death does not break the natural order of the cosmos. This understanding of death and the afterlife in Norse mythology emphasizes a key theme in the culture's beliefs, the idea that life is a struggle, and death is simply the end of that struggle. The warriors who die in battle are rewarded with eternal honor, while those who die of old age or illness are given a more subdued rest. The gatekeepers, in their roles as both selectors and guides, ensure that this balance is maintained, reinforcing the Norse view that death is neither inherently good nor bad, but simply a necessary part of the natural cycle. And in their guardianship, these figures reveal the Norse understanding of the universe, a place where death is an inevitable conclusion to life's journey, but also a transition to another state of being, marked by rest, judgment, and transformation. Ultimately, the role of gatekeepers like Hel in Norse mythology offers a profound commentary on the way life and death are perceived. In their actions, they reveal that death is not a singular event, but a passage, one that is shaped by the actions of the living and the values they hold dear. For the Norse, The gatekeepers are not just figures that stand at the threshold between life and death. They are active participants in the soul's journey, ensuring that each soul receives its due according to its deeds and its fate. These gatekeepers are the stewards of death, ensuring that its power is neither feared nor disrespected, but acknowledged as an essential part of the human experience. And as such, they hold an important place in the mythological landscape, serving as both protectors and guides on the path from life to death and beyond. In the heart of Celtic mythology, the concept of gatekeepers manifests in a way that is both enigmatic and deeply connected to the natural world. The Celts, whose beliefs were intricately woven into the rhythms of the earth, saw the boundaries between life and death as more fluid than final. Their understanding of the afterlife was not so much about judgment or punishment, but rather about transition, about crossing thresholds into different worlds. This is where the Celtic gatekeepers come into play, figures who were not only protectors of the gates between the worlds, but also guides who helped the souls of the dead navigate the realms beyond. They were embodiments of both the physical and spiritual thresholds that separated the living from the dead, the known from the unknown. At the core of Celtic belief is the idea that the boundaries between this world and the other world were never fully fixed. These boundaries were often seen as thin places, locations where the veil between the living and the spirit world grew weak, and the souls of the deceased could cross more easily into the afterlife. These thresholds were represented by sacred groves, wells, mounds, and even certain stones, all of which were guarded by the gatekeepers, the figures who ensured that the passage of souls was orderly and appropriate. The gatekeepers in Celtic tradition were not always monstrous or fearsome creatures. They were often mysterious, sometimes benign, but always revered. They embodied the forces of nature and were seen as guardians who protected the sacred transitions between life and death. One of the most well-known gatekeepers in Celtic mythology is the Cailleach, a goddess associated with both death and renewal. The Cailleach is often depicted as a crone, an ancient woman who embodies the power of winter and the wisdom that comes with age. She is a figure of both destruction and creation, as she governs the cycles of nature, including the death of the old year and the birth of the new. The Cailleach is not a figure who actively harms the living, but rather she represents the inevitable passing of time, the end of cycles, and the need for renewal. Her role as a gatekeeper is to oversee the transitions between seasons and between life and death, ensuring that the natural cycles continue uninterrupted. She is a figure who reminds us that death is not something to be feared, but something to be accepted as a necessary part of the eternal flow of life. The Cailleach's role as a gatekeeper is reflected in her control over the winter months, a time when the earth seems to die, only to be reborn in the spring. She is said to shape the weather, bring snow, and freeze the earth, ensuring that the old life is put to rest so that the new can take root. As a guardian of the seasons, she also stands at the threshold of life and death, ushering souls into the afterlife while ensuring that the cycles of nature continue. The Cailleach is a reminder that death is not an end, but a part of the ongoing cycle of existence. She guides the souls of the departed, ensuring they reach the other world, where they can rest and be reborn in another form when the time is right. The Cailleach embodies the notion that the soul, like the earth, must go through cycles of death and rebirth. In this way, she serves as both a figure of transformation and a protector of the boundaries between life and death. Another significant figure in Celtic mythology who serves as a gatekeeper is the god Gwyn ap Nudd, the ruler of the realm of and the Otherworld. Gwyn is often depicted as a powerful, mysterious god, associated with the wild hunt and the afterlife. His role as a gatekeeper is closely tied to the passage of souls into the Otherworld, where they would live after death, and is not a place of punishment, but a realm of rest and renewal, a place where the dead could find peace. Gwyn's role in Celtic mythology is not just to guard the entrance to but to act as a guide for souls who must pass through his domain. He is said to lead the wild hunt, a spectral procession of hunters and warriors who ride across the sky during certain times of the year. This hunt is often seen as a symbolic journey of the soul, passing through the realms of the living and into the next life. Gwyn, as the leader of this hunt, is not only a gatekeeper but also a guide, helping the souls of the departed navigate their way into the other world. Gwyn's role as a protector and guide is further illustrated by the stories that surround him. In one of the most famous myths, he is said to be the one who welcomes the souls of the dead into, and leading them through a labyrinth of trials and obstacles before they can find peace. Gwyn is not a punisher. He does not cast the souls into torment, but instead helps them overcome the challenges of the afterlife. His actions emphasize the Celtic belief that death is a journey, not a destination. The souls of the deceased are not abandoned or left to wander aimlessly, but are guided through the realms by figures like Gwyn, who help them navigate the uncertain terrain of the afterlife. The connection between Gwyn and the Wild Hunt highlights another key aspect of Celtic beliefs about the afterlife, the idea of the soul's journey as an active process. Unlike in many other mythologies, where the soul's passage is often seen as a passive event, the Celts believed that the journey to the afterlife was one that required effort, guidance, and sometimes even struggle. The Wild Hunt, led by Gwyn, symbolizes this active journey, where the soul must confront obstacles, face its fears, and ultimately find its place in the other world. This journey is not one that is dictated solely by fate or divine will, but one that involves choice, action, and perseverance. The role of gatekeepers in Celtic mythology is not solely confined to the figures of the Cailleach and Gwyn. The otherworld itself, as a realm of spirits, is filled with other figures who act as guardians of its boundaries. The Sidhe, or fairy folk, are another group of gatekeepers who play an important role in Celtic beliefs. These supernatural beings are said to reside in mounds, hills, and other sacred places, and they serve as protectors of the entrances to the otherworld. The Sidhe are often portrayed as mysterious and elusive, neither fully benevolent nor entirely malevolent. They are not always easily seen by mortals, but their presence is felt, and they are said to be guardians of the threshold between the living and the dead. The Sidhe ensure that only those who are meant to pass through to the other world are allowed to do so, and they can be both helpful and dangerous to those who attempt to trespass into their realm. Their role as gatekeepers reflects the idea that death is not something that can be taken lightly. It is a serious transition that must be respected and navigated carefully. The Celtic view of gatekeepers reflects a broader understanding of the afterlife as a fluid, ever-changing realm, where the boundaries between life and death are not set in stone. These gatekeepers, whether they are gods, spirits, or supernatural beings, are there to guide, protect, and ensure that the souls of the departed make their way to the other world in an orderly and respectful manner. They are figures of transformation, standing between the living and the dead, ensuring that the passage from one world to the next is seamless and meaningful. The Cailleach, Gwyn, and the Sidhe represent different facets of this role, but all share the common purpose of safeguarding the transitions between life and death. In doing so, they offer a profound reminder that death is not something to be feared, but a necessary part of the cycle of existence. It is not an end, but a continuation of a journey, guided by those who serve as protectors of the threshold, ensuring that the soul finds its way to rest and renewal in the next life. Through these figures, the Celts illustrated a view of the afterlife that is not defined by rigid boundaries or harsh judgment, but by the natural flow of life and death, a continuous cycle that is shaped by the guardians who protect it. The concept of gatekeepers in the world of Slavic mythology is particularly fascinating because of its deep-rooted connection to the natural world and the ancestral spirits that guide the dead. Slavic cultures have a rich history of beliefs surrounding the afterlife, and this belief system is reflected in their gatekeepers, who are often linked to forces of nature, guardians of sacred places, and protectors of the boundaries between life and death. In Slavic traditions, these gatekeepers were not always gods or supernatural entities, but could also be spirits of the deceased, ancestors, and creatures that embodied both the natural and the supernatural worlds. This dual role of being both protectors and guides adds layers of complexity to the Slavic understanding of death and the afterlife. At the heart of this mythology is the figure of Morozko, the Slavic god of winter and death, who plays a central role as a gatekeeper in the journey of the soul. Morozko is often depicted as a cold, frosty figure, sometimes resembling a formidable old man, sometimes as a more ethereal, ice-cold spirit. He embodies the harshness of winter, with its biting cold and the quiet stillness that falls over nature during the colder months. However, despite his chilling nature, Morozko is also a figure of transformation, embodying the idea that death, like winter, is both an end and a beginning. In many Slavic myths, Morozko's role as a gatekeeper is not one of cruel punishment, but of transition, guiding the souls of the deceased from the world of the living into the afterlife. He is not an active judge, but a passive observer, ensuring that the souls who pass into the realm of death do so peacefully and with respect for the natural order. Morozko is seen as a harbinger of winter, a force that brings the cold and the frost. Yet he is also associated with cleansing and renewal. In this sense, he embodies the Slavic understanding of death not as an end, but as a necessary process of cleansing. Winter, after all, is a time of dormancy in nature, where life retreats into itself and everything slows down. It is a time for renewal, for the earth to rest before the new cycle of life begins again. In the same way, Morozko represents the death of the old, whether it is the death of the seasons or the death of a person, before new life can emerge. His role as a gatekeeper is symbolic of the inevitability of death as a part of the natural cycle, and of the need for souls to pass through the cold threshold of death before they can be reborn in another form, much like the earth is reborn after the harsh winter. In addition to Morozko, another significant gatekeeper figure in Slavic mythology is the mythical creature known as the domovoi. The domovoi is a household spirit, a protector of the home and family, and a guardian of the boundaries between the living and the dead. While not directly associated with the afterlife in the way that Morozko is, the domovoi serves an important role in ensuring that the souls of the deceased remain at peace and do not disturb the living. The domovoi is considered a guardian of the household, and his presence is believed to protect the family from misfortune, disease, and other negative influences. However, the domovoi is also seen as a guide for the deceased, ensuring that they do not linger too long in the world of the living. This belief underscores the importance of honoring ancestors and making offerings to the spirits, as it was thought that failing to do so could lead to unrest and disturbances in the home. In this way, the domovoi acts as a gatekeeper between the realms, ensuring that the souls of the departed are properly respected and that they make their transition to the afterlife without causing disruption to the living. The domovoi is not a figure of fear, but rather one of reverence and respect. His role is not to judge the souls that cross into the afterlife, but to ensure that they are treated with the dignity and care they deserve. It is believed that when someone in the household dies, the domovoi guides their spirit, leading them to the other world where they can rest in peace. However, if the spirit of the deceased is not properly honored, or if the household fails to perform the necessary rituals, the domovoi could become displeased, and the family might experience misfortune or illness. This highlights the reciprocal relationship between the living and the dead in Slavic culture, where the gatekeepers of the afterlife are also protectors of the living, ensuring that the dead make their peaceful passage while also maintaining the well-being of those who remain. Another important figure in Slavic gatekeeping mythology is the character of Vodyanoi, a water spirit associated with rivers, lakes, and ponds. Vodyanoi is often depicted as an old man with a greenish, algae-covered body and a long, flowing beard. He is considered a guardian of bodies of water, but he also plays a significant role in protecting the threshold between life and death. In many Slavic myths, Vodyanoi is believed to dwell in the depths of the water, controlling the flow of rivers and ensuring that the natural order of the world is maintained. The spirits of the deceased, according to these myths, must cross bodies of water on their journey to the afterlife, and Vodyanoi is the one who ensures that only those who are worthy can pass. He is not necessarily a malevolent figure, but rather a gatekeeper who ensures that the souls of the dead are properly guided to their next realm, just as he protects the waters from those who would disturb the natural order. Vodyanoi's role as a gatekeeper can be understood in the context of the Slavic reverence for water as a liminal space, the boundary between the material world and the spiritual one. Water, in Slavic mythology, is often seen as a mediator between the worlds, a place where spirits can cross from one realm to the other. Vadianoi, as a protector of the waters, is the one who ensures that this crossing is done with care and respect. The souls of the dead must pass through water on their journey, and Vadianoi is the one who determines whether they are worthy of making this passage. This reinforces the Slavic understanding of death as a journey that must be undertaken with reverence, where the spirits must pass through various thresholds before they can find rest in the afterlife. The figure of the Rusalka, another water spirit, is another example of how Slavic mythology links water to the passage between life and death. Rusalki are the spirits of young women who have died prematurely or violently, and their spirits are said to dwell in lakes, rivers, or streams. Though not traditionally seen as gatekeepers in the way that Vadianoi is, Rusalki are believed to have a powerful influence on the souls of the living and the dead. In some myths, Rusalki are seen as guardians of the boundary between life and death, luring lost souls or travelers into the water, where they might drown and join the spirits in the afterlife. The Rusalki's role as gatekeepers is often more passive, but their influence over the waters and their connection to death makes them important figures in the mythology of the Slavic underworld. They are reminders that death is not always a peaceful passage, but can also be a force that lures or drags the soul into the unknown. Slavic gatekeepers, therefore, represent a complex relationship between the natural world, the living, and the dead. These figures are not simply protectors of thresholds. They embody the idea that the journey to the afterlife is not a straightforward passage, but one filled with challenges, transitions, and forces that demand respect. The gatekeepers of Slavic mythology, Morozko, the Domovoi, Vadianoi, and the Rusalki, serve as figures who not only protect the borders between life and death, but also act as guides, ensuring that the souls of the deceased find their proper place in the next world. These guardians reflect a belief in the interconnectedness of life, death, and the natural world, and remind us that the journey of the soul is not a solitary one, but one that is shaped by the forces of nature, ancestry, and respect for the balance between the living and the dead. In the rich and diverse world of Hindu mythology, the concept of gatekeepers is intricately woven into the fabric of spiritual belief and cosmological understanding. The Hindu worldview, deeply tied to cycles of birth, death, and rebirth, emphasizes the importance of transition, not just from life to death, but from one state of being to another. The Hindu pantheon is populated with a variety of deities, each representing different aspects of the universe, and many of these gods and goddesses play crucial roles in the transition from one realm to another. In this context, gatekeepers are not only guardians of thresholds, but also powerful figures who guide, protect, and ensure that the journey of the soul is carried out according to divine law and cosmic order. One of the most prominent figures in Hindu mythology who functions as a gatekeeper is Yama, the god of death. Yama is often depicted as a regal figure with a dark complexion, holding a mace and riding a buffalo. As the ruler of Naraka, the realm of the dead, Yama presides over the souls of the departed, determining their fate based on their deeds in life. His role is not merely to take souls to the afterlife, but to ensure that they face their karmic consequences with impartiality. Yama's judgment is a central aspect of Hindu understanding of the afterlife. Souls are believed to be weighed on the scales of karma, and Yama is the one who decides whether they are to be rewarded with a place in the heavenly realms or condemned to the suffering of Naraka. His presence as a gatekeeper emphasizes the importance of moral conduct in life and the inevitable nature of death. Yama is both feared and revered, as he embodies the balance of justice, ensuring that the soul receives what it deserves, based on the cosmic laws that govern existence. Yama's role as a gatekeeper is not one of mere judgment, but also of guidance. He is said to have two assistants, the Chitragupta, who records the actions of each soul, and the Yamadutas, who serve as his messengers. The Yamadutas, often depicted as fearsome beings with frightening features, are tasked with escorting the souls of the deceased to Yama's realm, ensuring that no soul escapes the inevitable judgment. These messengers are responsible for ensuring that the gates to the afterlife are not breached, and that the souls are properly guided to their respective destinations. This image of the Yamadutas, as both terrifying and protective, is symbolic of the Hindu belief that the journey to the afterlife is a serious matter. It is not a journey that can be taken lightly, and the gatekeepers, both Yama and his assistants, ensure that the rules governing life and death are upheld with integrity. In Hindu cosmology, the afterlife is not a single, uniform destination, but a series of realms that the soul may inhabit based on its actions during life. This idea of multiple realms is central to the concept of karma, which dictates that the soul's journey after death is determined by the actions, good or bad, that it has accumulated over its lifetime. The soul's path after death can lead it to a variety of places, from the blissful realms of the gods to the dark and torturous regions of Naraka. The presence of gatekeepers in this journey ensures that the soul is guided toward its appropriate destination. The journey of the soul is not arbitrary, but is instead a reflection of the spiritual laws that govern the universe. The gatekeepers, such as Yama and his assistants, ensure that these laws are respected and that the soul's passage is orderly and just. However, Yama is not the only figure in Hindu mythology who serves as a gatekeeper. Another key figure in the journey of the soul is the goddess Kali, who is often associated with both destruction and creation. Kali is known for her fearsome appearance, with a dark complexion, a necklace of skulls, and a tongue that drips with blood. She is a goddess who represents the transformative power of death, not as an end, but as a necessary part of the cycle of life. Kali is often invoked in rituals to help individuals let go of their attachments and ego, preparing them for the inevitable journey into the afterlife. In this sense, she can be seen as a gatekeeper of the soul's transition from the material world to the spiritual realm. Her role is to help the soul shed its earthly attachments, allowing it to pass into the next phase of existence with purity and clarity. Kali's association with death is not one of terror or fear, but one of liberation. She is a goddess who frees the soul from the limitations of the physical body, allowing it to transcend the cycle of birth and rebirth. As a gatekeeper, Kali ensures that the soul is not weighed down by the baggage of its past life, but instead is able to move forward with a sense of freedom and enlightenment. Her role as a protector and guide reflects the Hindu understanding of death as a transformative experience, where the soul is liberated from the physical realm and prepared for its next journey. Kali is both a guardian and a guide, ensuring that the soul is ready to cross the threshold into the next phase of existence with grace and dignity. The role of gatekeepers in Hinduism also extends to the idea of the soul's journey through various cosmic realms. In Hindu mythology, the universe is divided into multiple realms, or lokas, each with its own inhabitants, experiences, and spiritual significance. These realms range from the heavenly realms of the gods to the dark and oppressive realms of Naraka. The soul's journey after death involves passing through these realms, sometimes being reborn in one of the lower realms before being elevated to higher states of consciousness. The gatekeepers of these realms are responsible for ensuring that the soul's journey is in alignment with its karmic destiny, guiding it through the various stages of existence. One of the most significant gatekeepers in this cosmic journey is Lord Shiva, the destroyer and transformer of the universe. While Lord Shiva is often associated with destruction, his role as a gatekeeper is not one of punishment, but of transformation. As the god who destroys the old to make way for the new, Shiva is seen as a guardian of the cosmic cycles, ensuring that the universe operates in a state of balance and harmony. His presence as a gatekeeper signifies that death is not a final ending, but a necessary part of the ongoing process of creation and destruction. Through his cosmic dance, Shiva represents the eternal cycles of life, death, and rebirth, ensuring that the soul's journey through these cycles is one of transformation and growth. Shiva, in this way, acts as a gatekeeper who helps guide the soul through the various stages of existence, allowing it to transcend its earthly limitations and move toward enlightenment. Another important gatekeeper in Hinduism is the god Vishnu, who is often depicted as the protector of the universe and the preserver of life. Vishnu's role as a gatekeeper is linked to his responsibility for maintaining the cosmic order. In many Hindu traditions, Vishnu is seen as the protector of the soul, ensuring that it is guided through the cycles of birth, death, and rebirth with compassion and understanding. His role as a gatekeeper emphasizes the idea that the soul's journey is not one of punishment or suffering, but one of divine care and protection. Vishnu's presence as a gatekeeper ensures that the soul is not lost in the vastness of the universe, but is instead carefully guided through each phase of its existence, from one incarnation to the next. In the Hindu view of the afterlife, the journey of the soul is one of progression, not regression. The soul is believed to evolve over countless lifetimes, accumulating wisdom and understanding as it moves through different realms of existence. The gatekeepers, such as Yama, Kali, Shiva, and Vishnu, are not merely figures of authority or judgment. They are guides who help the soul navigate this process of spiritual evolution. They are protectors of the sacred journey, ensuring that the soul's transition from one realm to the next is in alignment with its divine purpose. The presence of these gatekeepers reflects the Hindu understanding of the soul as an eternal, evolving entity, one that is constantly moving toward higher states of consciousness and enlightenment. Ultimately, the gatekeepers of Hindu mythology offer a vision of death and the afterlife that is deeply interconnected with the principles of karma, transformation, and spiritual evolution. These figures, Yama, Kali, Shiva, Vishnu, and others, serve as guides and protectors on the soul's journey through life, death, and rebirth. They remind us that death is not an end, but a transition, and that the soul's passage through these transitions is one of growth, purification, and spiritual evolution. The role of the gatekeeper in Hinduism is to ensure that the soul's journey is one of balance and divine order, helping it to move toward its ultimate goal of enlightenment and liberation from the cycle of birth and death. Through their presence, these gatekeepers offer a vision of the afterlife that is not one of fear, but of hope, a journey that is guided by divine wisdom and eternal love. In the mythology of ancient Egypt, the idea of gatekeepers is deeply intertwined with the belief surrounding the afterlife and the journey of the soul. For the Egyptians, the afterlife was not merely a realm where souls went to rest. It was a journey filled with trials, obstacles, and guardians. This journey was essential, for the Egyptians believed that the soul's fate after death was determined by its ability to navigate the complex and dangerous terrain of the underworld, known as Duat. The role of gatekeepers in this underworld was not simply to keep the dead from entering, but to ensure that only those souls who were worthy could pass through to their final resting place, where they would be judged and either rewarded with eternal life or cast into oblivion. One of the most important figures in Egyptian mythology, who served as a gatekeeper to the afterlife, was Anubis, the god of mummification and the protector of tombs. Anubis was often depicted as a man with the head of a jackal, a creature associated with cemeteries and the care of the dead. His primary role as a gatekeeper was to guide the soul through the afterlife, ensuring that it reached the judgment hall of Osiris, the god of the dead, where the soul's deeds would be weighed. Anubis was also responsible for overseeing the embalming process, a crucial step that ensured the preservation of the body and the safe passage of the soul to the afterlife. His role as a guardian and protector was essential, as he ensured that the soul could reach the heart of Osiris and face the final judgment. Anubis' task was not one of judgment, however. He was the protector and guide, ensuring that the soul was properly prepared for its journey and that no obstacles or threats hindered its passage. His role was to prepare the deceased for the judgment that would take place in the Hall of Two Truths, where the heart of the deceased would be weighed against the feather of Ma'at, the goddess of truth and justice. The weight of the heart would determine whether the soul was worthy of entering the field of reeds, a paradise where the deceased could live in peace and contentment for eternity, or whether it would be devoured by Ammit, the fearsome demoness who consumed the souls of the unworthy. While Anubis served as a guide and protector, other gods and deities also played key roles in the journey of the soul. The god Osiris, in his role as ruler of the afterlife, was the ultimate gatekeeper. Osiris presided over the judgment of souls, and it was through his judgment that the fate of each soul was determined. He was often depicted as a mummified king, representing both death and resurrection, as he had once died and was brought back to life by his wife, Isis. Osiris' role as a gatekeeper was not merely as a judge, but also as a symbol of hope and resurrection. His death and resurrection represented the eternal cycle of life, death, and rebirth, and he was seen as a protector of the deceased, ensuring that they were granted a chance at eternal life if they proved worthy. The judgment process in Egyptian mythology was elaborate and complex, with various deities acting as gatekeepers to the different realms the soul had to pass through. The soul's journey through Duat was filled with dangers, obstacles, and tests that it had to overcome in order to reach the Hall of Osiris. The deceased would encounter serpents, demons, and other malevolent beings that tried to prevent them from passing. However, with the guidance and protection of the gods, such as Anubis and Osiris, the soul could successfully navigate these challenges. The soul's fate rested not only on its actions during life, but also on the preparation it received through the process of mummification and the recitation of prayers and spells from the Book of the Dead, a collection of texts that served as a guide for the deceased in the afterlife. One of the most critical aspects of this journey was the weighing of the heart, a ritual in which the deceased's heart was weighed against the feather of Ma'at. This feather represented the concept of truth, balance, and cosmic order. If the heart was lighter than the feather, the soul was considered pure and worthy of entering the afterlife, where it would enjoy eternal peace and happiness. If the heart was heavier, it was a sign of impurity, and the soul was cast into the jaws of Ammit, the devourer of souls, where it would be annihilated. This process highlighted the Egyptian belief in the importance of moral conduct and truthfulness during life. The role of the gatekeepers in this judgment was not simply to act as passive observers, but to actively guide and protect the soul as it faced this crucial trial. Beyond the gods and goddesses who acted as gatekeepers in the afterlife, there were also numerous supernatural creatures and spirits who served as protectors of the gates to the various realms. The uraeus, a sacred cobra that symbolized divine authority, was often depicted on the crowns of the pharaohs and served as a protector of the deceased. The cobra was seen as a symbol of both protection and danger, as it could strike down those who threatened the deceased, but could also block the way of the soul if it was unworthy. Similarly, other deities and spirits, such as the four sons of Horus, each of whom guarded different parts of the body during the embalming process, also played key roles in protecting the gates of the afterlife. The four sons of Horus were personifications of the four cardinal directions and were assigned the task of safeguarding the organs of the deceased, which were removed during the mummification process. Each son was associated with a specific organ. Imsidi guarded the liver, Hapi protected the lungs, Duamutef looked after the stomach, and Kabisanuf watched over the intestines. These gods also had their roles in the spiritual journey of the deceased, acting as gatekeepers for the various parts of the body and ensuring that each part was preserved for the soul's journey. This connection between the physical body and the spiritual journey reflects the Egyptian belief in the unity of the body and soul, with the preservation of the body being essential for the soul's safe passage to the afterlife. As the soul journeyed through the underworld, it was also guided by various protective deities, such as Hathor, the goddess of love, beauty, and motherhood, who was often depicted as a cow or a woman with the head of a cow. Hathor's role as a gatekeeper was to provide comfort and reassurance to the soul as it passed through the perilous underworld. She was a symbol of nurturing and care, offering a sense of protection and safety in the midst of the trials the soul faced. Hathor was not only a goddess of love and beauty, but also one of the deities who helped the deceased find peace in the afterlife, providing solace during their journey. Another important aspect of the Egyptian afterlife was the belief in the Aku, or the glorified spirits of the dead, who had passed through the judgment process and were granted eternal life. These souls were thought to be in the company of the gods, living in a state of peace and happiness. The Aku were considered to be part of the divine order, and their existence was an example of the ultimate goal of the soul's journey, to live in harmony with the gods and the cosmic forces of the universe. The gatekeepers of the afterlife, such as Anubis and Osiris, ensured that only those who were truly worthy could join the ranks of the Aku, further emphasizing the importance of living a righteous life according to the laws of Ma'at. The Egyptian afterlife, with its complex layers of judgment, protection, and guidance, serves as a testament to the ancient Egyptians' understanding of life and death as part of a greater cosmic cycle. The gatekeepers, whether gods, goddesses, or supernatural beings, played an integral role in ensuring that the journey of the soul was properly conducted and that the deceased received their just reward. These figures were not simply protectors of the afterlife, but were also symbols of the moral and spiritual laws that govern the universe. Through their actions, they reinforced the belief that the soul's journey was not arbitrary, but a reflection of the choices made during life. The Egyptian afterlife was a realm of judgment and transformation, and the gatekeepers stood as vigilant protectors, ensuring that the balance of the cosmos was maintained and that only the righteous could enter the eternal peace of the afterlife. In the complex and deeply rich mythology of the ancient Norse, gatekeepers are depicted as powerful figures that guard the boundaries between the known world and the unknown, between life and death. The Norse afterlife, governed by an intricate system of realms and deities, is centered on the idea that death is not an end, but rather a transition to a different kind of existence. For the Norse, life was a struggle, and death was simply another battle in the ongoing journey of the soul. The realm of the dead, Helheim, was not a place of torment for all souls, but rather a land where the dead dwelled according to their actions in life. It was a place where only the brave or the heroic would end up in Valhalla, the hall of the slain, while others, those who died of illness or old age, would journey to Hel, the land ruled over by the goddess of the same name. Hel, the goddess, plays a pivotal role as a gatekeeper in Norse mythology. She is the daughter of the trickster god Loki and the giantess Angrboda, and her domain is the Underworld itself. Depicted as a being with a half-living, half-dead appearance, her role is complex and multifaceted. Hel's dominion is not one of torment or suffering, but rather a shadowy, cold realm where souls who did not die heroically reside. The role she plays as a gatekeeper is significant because it challenges the commonly held ideas of the afterlife in other mythologies, where judgment is often harsh and punishment is inevitable. Instead, Hel's realm is a place where souls await their eventual fate, existing in a state of peace, but also marked by the inevitability of death. In Norse mythology, the journey to Helheim was not one to be feared, but one that was unavoidable for many who did not die in battle. The souls of those who perished in sickness or old age found themselves at the gates of Helheim, where they would be greeted by the goddess Hel herself. Her role as a gatekeeper is symbolic of the Norse belief that the afterlife is not simply about the soul's fate, but about the legacy one leaves behind. Those who had lived their lives in a way that did not align with the warrior code were sent to Helheim, where they would wait for the final judgment. Unlike the souls of those who died in battle, who were welcomed into the halls of Valhalla, the souls in Helheim would exist in a quiet, inactive state, awaiting the final, climactic events of Ragnarok. But Hel, as a gatekeeper, does not solely control access to Helheim. She is also a guardian of the dead. The process of dying and passing into her realm required crossing boundaries and navigating through dangerous lands. The Norse believed that there were many obstacles and challenges that one would face on their journey to the afterlife. The realm of the dead was not easily accessed. It was not simply a place one could wander into without consequence. There were rivers to cross, mountains to climb, and spiritual tests to endure. Hel's role as gatekeeper was to ensure that only those who had the right to enter her domain could do so. This concept of gatekeeping is deeply embedded in the Norse understanding of the afterlife as a journey, where every soul must pass through multiple stages before finding their place in the afterlife. The gates of Valhalla, ruled by Odin, are another important gateway in Norse mythology. While Hel's realm is for those who have passed in non-heroic ways, Valhalla is a place for warriors who have died bravely in battle. It is a hall where the greatest warriors, the Einherjar, reside, preparing for Ragnarok, the final battle between the gods and the forces of chaos. In this sense, Odin acts as a gatekeeper to Valhalla, ensuring that only those who have proven their worth in battle are allowed entry. The warriors in Valhalla are not in a state of eternal rest. Instead, they are constantly training, fighting, and preparing for the great battle that will bring about the end of the world. Their existence is one of continuous action and readiness, reflecting the Norse values of strength, bravery, and honor. The Norse mythology also presents another type of gatekeeper in the form of the Valkyries, the warrior maidens who serve Odin. These figures are tasked with selecting the fallen warriors who are worthy of entering Valhalla. The Valkyries are often depicted as beautiful, fierce, and ethereal women who fly across the battlefields, choosing those warriors who have died with honor. Their role as gatekeepers is one of both judgment and selection, as they determine which souls will be granted entry to Valhalla and which will be left to the more common afterlife of Helheim. The Valkyries are both protectors and guides, ensuring that only those who embody the ideals of Norse warrior culture are allowed to join Odin's Hall. Their ability to choose and guide the souls to Valhalla reflects the importance placed on warrior values in Norse society. While the Valkyries and Odin preside over the gates to Valhalla, Hel herself serves as the gatekeeper to a different kind of afterlife, one for those who did not meet the lofty standards of heroic death. However, both realms are equally important in the context of the Norse understanding of death and the afterlife. The presence of these gatekeepers serves to highlight the Norse belief in the duality of existence. Life is a constant struggle, and death, while inevitable, is an important transition that reflects the nature of one's life. The gates of both Helheim and Valhalla serve as powerful symbols of the Norse worldview, where the afterlife is not a place of passive existence, but a continuation of the journey, one that is shaped by the choices made during life. Another important aspect of the Norse view of the afterlife is the role of the Norns, the three sisters who control the fate of all beings in the universe. The Norns are often depicted as powerful and wise beings who reside at the roots of Yggdrasil, the great world tree. They spin the threads of fate, determining the lives and deaths of gods and mortals alike. In this sense, the Norns can be seen as ultimate gatekeepers, controlling the flow of existence itself, while Hel, Odin, and the Valkyries are responsible for guiding the dead to their respective realms. The Norns determine who lives and who dies, and when and how that death occurs. Their role as gatekeepers is one that transcends the afterlife and extends into the very fabric of life itself. The Norns are often portrayed as cold and impartial, their decisions based on the cosmic laws that govern the universe rather than on any sense of personal judgment. They are the ultimate arbiters of fate, and their control over the lives of all beings reflects the idea that death is not something that can be avoided, but rather something that is predetermined by forces beyond the control of mortals. The Norns are not concerned with whether a soul is good or bad, brave or cowardly. Their role is simply to ensure that the natural order is maintained, and that every soul follows the path laid out for them. In this sense, the Norns are the final gatekeepers, the ones who determine the course of existence itself, and in doing so, they shape the afterlife for all souls, regardless of their deeds in life. The mythological structure of gatekeepers in Norse culture, from Hel to the Valkyries to the Norns, reflects a belief system that intertwines life, death, and fate in a way that is uniquely Nordic. The journey of the soul is not simply about the end of life, but about the continuity of existence, the passage of time, and the eternal cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. The gatekeepers of Norse mythology play vital roles in maintaining this cosmic order, guiding souls through the various realms, ensuring that they receive their due based on the choices they made during their lives. These figures remind us that death is not an end, but a transition to another phase of existence, one that is shaped by our actions and our place in the grand cosmic tapestry. In the vast landscape of African mythology, gatekeepers are often depicted as spiritual entities tasked with overseeing transitions between life and death, ensuring that the passage between worlds occurs with balance and respect. African beliefs surrounding the afterlife vary from region to region, but one common thread is the deep reverence for ancestors and the importance of spiritual guardians who protect and guide souls. The role of these gatekeepers is not only to guard thresholds, but also to act as mediators between the living and the spirit world, ensuring that souls are properly cared for after they depart from the physical realm. The concept of death in many African cultures is not viewed as an end, but as a continuation of the journey into the spiritual realm, where ancestors play a significant role in shaping the destiny of both the living and the dead. One of the most prominent gatekeepers in African mythology is the figure of the ancestor spirit. Ancestor veneration is a central tenet of many African belief systems, and the spirits of ancestors are considered to be the ultimate protectors and guides of the living. These spirits are believed to reside in an otherworldly realm, often called the spirit world or the realm of the ancestors, but they are never far from the living. Ancestors are thought to have the power to influence the lives of their descendants, guiding them through both good times and bad. In many African cultures, it is believed that when a person dies, their spirit passes into this realm, where they take on the role of a spiritual gatekeeper. Their duty is to ensure that the souls of the dead are properly received into the spirit world, allowing them to rest peacefully and continue their spiritual journey. For example, in many parts of West Africa, the Yoruba people believe in a complex system of spiritual realms, where the souls of the deceased must pass through multiple gates before reaching their final resting place. These gates are guarded by spiritual beings known as orishas, who are revered as deities and guardians of various aspects of life. Each orisha governs different aspects of existence, whether it be love, wisdom, health, or justice, and is responsible for guiding souls to their rightful place in the afterlife. The orishas are often depicted as powerful and benevolent figures who serve as intermediaries between the living and the divine. The orisha Eshu, in particular, is one of the most important gatekeepers in Yoruba mythology. Eshu is a trickster god who oversees the crossroads, and it is through his domain that the souls of the deceased must pass before they can continue their journey to the afterlife. As a guardian of the gates, Eshu ensures that souls do not stray from their path, helping them to find their way through the intricate network of spiritual realms. Similarly, in Zulu mythology, the spirits of ancestors are believed to be powerful intermediaries between the living and the divine. These spirits are thought to reside in the spirit world, but are able to communicate with the living through rituals, dreams, and omens. Zulu people often believe that their ancestors are the ones who open the gates to the afterlife, allowing souls to pass from the physical world into the spiritual realm. These ancestor spirits act as gatekeepers, ensuring that souls are received and welcomed into the afterlife in a peaceful manner. In many Zulu communities, ritual practices are performed to honor ancestors and seek their guidance, with the belief that the spirits of the departed can influence the course of events in the living world. The ancestors' role as gatekeepers is seen as both a protective and a guiding force, ensuring that the balance between the living and the dead is maintained. In Akan mythology, which is prevalent in parts of Ghana and Ivory Coast, the concept of gatekeepers is closely tied to the belief in the Abuzum, the deities who govern natural forces and the spiritual world. The Abuzum are considered powerful beings that control the flow of life and death, and their role in the afterlife is integral to the soul's journey. These gatekeepers are often seen as guardians who monitor the flow of souls into the afterlife and ensure that they are properly guided. The souls of the deceased must pass through the Abuzum's realm before reaching the ancestral land, a sacred space where they can join the ancestors and receive eternal rest. The Abuzum, much like the orishas in Yoruba belief, are revered as intermediaries who hold the power to protect or punish souls, depending on their actions in life. These deities are also believed to have the ability to influence the lives of the living, guiding individuals to live in harmony with a natural and spiritual order.